The cards may have been stacked against the Panthers going into their matchup against Colorado, but man, were the Panthers unable to keep up with the Avalanche speed and get boat raced in Denver.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, December 12th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, the host of the show, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. That is Nich Fairbanks joining me on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. You could follow him on X at Prudential0. Shout out to every day who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. You can do that all on FanDuel. So, Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Panthers, as the Panthers lose the Colorado Avalanche by a final score of 6-2 in a game that was not even close, as the Panthers were on a second end of a back-to-back, and it was the first game for the Avalanche back at home after taking a loss in the final game of their road trip, and also with the Avalanche celebrating their 1996 Stanley Cup championship. So to pour some salt on the wound, they absolutely boat raced the Florida Panthers as they put 20 shots on goal, and the Panthers really, truly had a hard time stopping the rush. And we knew that the Avalanche were a speedy team. Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, some of the best skaters in the league, but 1:14 in of this game, the Panthers go for the forecheck and they're off to the races, and Sam Milinski is able to score. And although the Panthers did score 6 minutes later, thanks to Noah Gregor for his first as a Panther, that nothing else for the Panthers were really got going, although it was a 1-goal deficit going into the second period. But when you see 20 shots on goal and the fact that the Panthers were committing too much to the strong side, and the fact that the Avalanche were able to quickly get the pucks out of their sticks on their breakouts, that's really what truly hurt the Panthers in this game.
It really did, and thanks for having me on again for this Friday. But the Avalanche really exploited the Florida Panthers and their lack of speed on the back end. I mean, I know we talk about Gustav Forsling, you have Seth Jones, and you have Nico Mikkola, just to name a few defensemen. But if you notice how all those breakouts happen, it's because a defenseman on the right side would pinch down when they shouldn't have, and Colorado was hungrier wanting to win those battles. So every time they did, they would always have a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2, which you can't blame Tarasov at all this game. He wasn't given a chance to start. As you said, 20 shots in the first period. I remember there was a time being a Panthers fan that if we were down 2-1 with 20 shots against, that was a win. We were still in this game, but never really felt like that. Once the game kept going.
Yeah, no doubt. And it didn't continue on. And even when the Colorado Avalanche were up by a score of 5-1 going into the third period, they still outshot the Panthers in the third period 8-3. And I'll tell you guys on the podcast and on the YouTube the truth. This was the fastest that I've ever went from final horn to recording a show and I had all the graphics ready. I had my short ready because not to tease too much into our second segment of when we knew the game was lost. I knew the game was lost way before the third period. Spoiler alert there. but you're just thinking about the and you mentioned the pinching of the Panthers there for the defense. There was one goal that the Panthers gave up where it was like a double pinch where Gustav Forsling goes for a shot to the net. Obviously he retrieves the puck there, and he was able to at least get a shot. But then Aaron Ekblad is also pinching on that same shift, and then it ends up being a goal for the Colorado Avalanche. That was the fifth goal that they gave up in the second period. That was the Arturi Lehkonen goal. And to think that it happened over and over for the Colorado Avalanche, and to think that Even when the Florida Panthers were able to kind of get a forecheck going, it was a really Mackenzie Blackwood kind of not allowing the Florida Panthers to get quality of chances. And honestly, you look at the rush chances for to against. I mean, 2-0 after the first period, and then it just continued on. You think that the Florida Panthers, they would, and this is one of my keys to the game, was continuing to stay tight in their D zone. But when you're not allowing them to go through the neutral zone slowly, you don't give yourself an opportunity to be tight.
Yeah, and I mean they were disjointed, unfortunately, and I don't want to say the forwards were not helping, but it just seemed like whenever there was an odd man rush or whenever Colorado was going through the neutral zone, it was already a done deal. It didn't matter how fast the forwards were trying to get back; they were already beat. So, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen when you play an aggressive style of play like the Panthers do. You need to win those pinches, you need to win those battles, or at least stop the puck and try to fight for it while you get your backup there, because the forwards, unfortunately, this game were not quick enough to cover for their defensemen, which is why you saw a lot of those breakouts and a lot of those odd man rushes. But the other thing I wanted to point out too is in the first period specifically, in the first, I want to say 10 minutes, Colorado was getting in everywhere that they wanted. They were getting to the crease, they were getting to the blue paint. So Tarasov, when was he going to feel comfortable in this game? I mean, he had to make save after save. He did keep the team in it for the first period, thankfully, but after that, it just burned the tape. Let's go to Dallas. Let's get back together and put out a better effort.
Yeah, this is one where you're probably gonna zoom out throughout the season and just say, hey, this is one where you know that the Florida Panthers are not. This is not the type of hockey that this team is used to playing, and knowing that the one that fits to their identity. And yeah, the situation, when you think about it, for the Panthers coming off a big win the night before, going into to Denver the very next night, while the other team is rested. And there were multiple disadvantages that the Panthers had going into this. The altitude is as well. And the injuries. That's almost a handful of things that you're looking at. And I was mentally prepared, thinking even to myself, scheduled loss in this one. But yeah, let's go back to the forwards that, like you mentioned, for the Panthers and their inability to at least skate back and even get not even their ability to even get their puck on the stick to even reach for a back check. But the first one from Malinsky, Anton Lundell, is unfortunately slow to get up as it was on the M boards, and that was a line change from Malinsky getting back. And then the third goal that the Colorado Avalanche scored, again, it was those pucks that were quick off the stick. It was a pinch, by the way, of Jeff Petrie there, where Uvis Belinskas was on an island, and then Brent Burns gets a shot where Danil Tarasov is all the way at the top of the crease, and then as Gavin Brindley was going there and getting that backhand shot, two Panthers were behind Brindley, but they were not fast enough to get there. So that's also the frustrating things, is that there wasn't enough support. Although I would put this more on defense than I would the forwards.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say a lot of things about this game, whether it was, injuries are finally starting to show. I mean, this is a game definitely where you can see the absence of a Matthew Tkachuk or Alexander Barkov and how much they do mean, because of how much space they can take up. McKinnon, probably one of top three players in the world. He does get bottled up by Barkov a lot. And, he was free reign tonight. Didn't really notice Nate just too much, but a lot of the other forwards that you don't really hear about in Colorado actually played well tonight. And you just gotta pick your pieces up and move on to the next one. I mean, if this is, a lot of people are already putting Colorado in the cup, but just because of their start this season, let's pump the brakes a little bit. But I would not be surprised to see them at least in the Western Conference Final, and we'll see if they make it to the final.
Hey, at least on pace to get home ice advantage, at least in the first two rounds, maybe the first three, on pace to break the Bruins point total from just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
With the run that they're on, they haven't lost a single game in regulation at home. And then right before we transition to segment number 2, I'm just going to read off some of the shots that of the top shot getters for Colorado. Nathan McKinnon 7, Arturi Lehkonen 5, Valerie Nichushkin 3, which he was back on the second line for the Avalanche. Brock Nelson 3, including getting a goal at the net front from a point shot, and then just getting in front of Anton Lundell, mind you, on that goal, by the way. And just and also they had to make a little bit of a shift, putting Ross Colton back at center. This was the first game of one of the Colorado beat reporters said this was his first game working at center, but he wasn't one of the main characters for the Colorado Avalanche here. But with how dangerous their top 6 is, I mean, that they could absolutely take over games. And that's just again, I said it before, hold on to your butts coming into this matchup. And the Florida Panthers, unfortunately, were unable to just keep up with them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss the moment where we the 3 duds of the game and the moment where we knew the game was lost. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And you already live your team every day. Now take it up to the next level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast with no interruption, members only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. And go to the link down below to learn more. So once again, Armando Velez here with Nich Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, as the Florida Panthers lose by a final score of 6-2 against the Colorado Avalanche. And it's a Florida Panthers loss, which means we are going to discuss our 3 duds of the game and discuss the moment when we knew the game was lost. So I'm going to go first here. I'm going to go number 3 dud for me is going to be the Belinskis Petrie pair. I thought they were incredibly aggressive with what they were trying to do with their pinches. Of course, the Florida Panthers are a live by the pinch, die by the pinch type of team, but with this type of team that is on the other side, and obviously with Petrie's age, and we've been saying this the last 2 years when Belinskis first joined the team, that I don't trust him in a big role. And I mean at a certain point, when you think about years for the Panthers, and then just the fact that you're not always going to get an OEL, you can't always hit every single year, you can't always get a Nate Schmidt every year on these 1-year deals. We wish it would work that way, but just the fact that the foot speed isn't there for Petrie, and then the puck skills for Belinskis is very subpar. We're starting to see it truly go in front of us based on that. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go with Mackie Samoskevich. Yes, he got a goal on that rush chance. Great sweep by Adrian Greer. Unfortunately, he did get clipped by Josh Manson on the goal. But man, I just thought the amount of turnovers that he had, and one of the goals, like I mentioned, the Gavin Brindley one earlier, he was one of those players who were unable to get back quickly on the pack check, but also he was one of the players who were committed to the strong side that allowed that breakout to happen and have the middle of the ice open, especially when Colorado's D was already starting to go up the ice down the middle when there was so much ice open in their D zone. And then number one dud, I'm gonna go with Anton Lundell in this one. I think it's really fair to say. I mean, he gets outmuscled by Brock Nelson on that goal, and then set the tone early for his inability to get back. And let me check how many shots Lundell had. 2 shots on goal. And also, one thing to mention, there was a lot of broken sticks on the power plays. 2 by Bennett, 1 by Marchand, 1 by Samoskevich. It was the Panthers literally gripping their sticks a little too tightly and hitting the ice before the puck. And that happened more times than I would have liked to have seen on this night. But your 3 duds, Nick.
My third dud of the game is going to be Mr. Forsling. I feel like, a lot of people say that he's the most fit person on the Panthers. Well, I think over the last couple of games, I think his tank might be a little bit empty. He's not playing like himself. And I think tonight, he just, again, I think he's either overcommitting or he's not being in the right areas where he needs to be. One of the stats that he's been known for is plus minus. He's a -3 on this evening, and he's a -1 for the year. So very different from what he has been for the last couple of years. Second one is going to be Aaron Ekblad, namely for his pinches, and on top of that, just overall, I just don't see him being that great right now. I honestly, I think he took a couple penalties that could have been avoidable, but again, the lack of foot speed which has always been his Achilles heel. Just puts him in those type of positions. He's great with the stick, but it doesn't matter if you can't skate. And then my number one dud, I was actually going to say the whole line of Reinhart, Lundell, and Luostarinen, all -3. I don't want to put 100% blame on them, but they are technically the first line, and they were bottled up, couldn't do anything. Even though Luostarinen did score, it was a kicking motion, so it got waved off. But they were a non-factor, and when you have the decimation of injuries that you have on this team, you can't have your line like that not show up. I mean, the fourth line showed up at least, and I think they potted 2 goals or roughly around there.
Yeah, that Noah Gregor was the other one, and then Samoskevich was the other one. So it was the bottom 6, but not necessarily the fourth line for the Panthers. And also the Avalanche also had a goal taken off the board due to Nate just being offside there. But even on that goal that was disallowed, there was a big save by Tarasov that he had with the blocker, and then who was faster to the puck after the puck was saved? Colorado, and then they worked it back. But also the fact that and this is how great Nathan MacKinnon is, and also with how dangerous he is. On that goal that he was playing a little bit of catch with Sam Girard, you saw how much the Panthers were freezing on that and how much they didn't draw to him to close the gap. And he was just able to just get that puck through the screen so easily. That's how lethal that guy is. And also, Seth Jones being the defenseman to kind of only go up there. If you're gonna commit that far up when you're in your own D zone, commit all the way at least there, for that. But I looked at that play like 2 or 3 more times, and I saw how the Panthers were absolutely just frozen there, and just goes to show how great this guy is. And I mean, look back at that draft, just the top 4 picks. I know Druin didn't necessarily work out, but the fact that in that game you have 3 of the top 4 picks there with Jones there. I mean, man, those years between 2013 and 2016 in the draft, some of the best that we've seen, and that is truly the drafts that are currently in their primes.
Yeah, I mean, right now the drafts between 2013 and 2016, this is as you said, their prime, and they're going to be the face of the NHL for the next at least 5 years until they're willing, or until they hand off to players like Bedard and Celebrini, and maybe McKenna. I know that we didn't even mention Connor McDavid or Draisaitl or anything like that. But
they're in that range of the drafts. But yeah,
they are. But I think just with these players right now, their prime is for the next 5 years ish. And then from there, the younger guys that we're seeing right now will take over. But yeah, I think with the McKinnon being just the weapon that he is, you don't really have one way to play him. He can speed past you. He can do the cycle game. I think that's actually probably his best way of playing. And then when he pauses people or he gets them to freeze, he can do anything he wanted with that. He could have, actually gone in if he wanted to, but he was smart enough to see that Tarasov's vision was completely blocked off and he wasn't set at all. He was not on a good angle and he just whipped it right past him.
Yeah, and to think that that's a unit that doesn't necessarily connect the puck well on the power play, and it's such a different team on the power play versus than what they are 5-on-5. And usually when you see those guys in the neutral zone, especially when they're trying to make a few circles there, and then they do that drop pass, and you don't know whether you should drop in or go forward there. That's where if McKinnon is going off puck and then you're giving it to someone like Kyle McCarr, that's where it can be dangerous, where McCarr could even take it in himself there down the middle. So that's also, I call it a Picasso painting as well. And also they're in the past, they haven't been that super aggressive forecheck team, and they have just been they haven't done that 1-3-1 trap like we saw ages ago. But they do wait for the opposition to make the mistake as far as their breakout passes, and then they're right back in the offensive zone there. Just well constructed team, well coached, all of that jazz. But let's go quickly before we go to segment number 3, because we didn't even mention this part of the show. When did we know the game was lost? I kind of knew it when it was 3-1. That was kind of my moment, because you're thinking, okay, going into the second period, okay, maybe they'll find a way and maybe those 20 shots on goal, they'll find a way to at least flip the momentum from one period to the next. Nope, not the case. And down 2 on the road in with these circumstances, not a chance.
So I've been teetering between 2 different goals that Colorado scored, and you actually mentioned it. I was going to go with the McKinnon one, just because I think that really did take the wind out of their sails. But I think it was actually the second goal by Brock Nelson. It was towards the end of the first period, and if Florida could get out of that period tied, then you could see the team having a little bit more belief or a little bit more juice to go into the second period and make this a game, not what we saw later, but make it a more tight game. And unfortunately, those goals at the end of periods kill you, because then the other team has the lead at the end of the period, and then they come into the next period guns a-blazing to make it 3-1. And, that's what exactly Colorado did.
Yeah, and the fact that the Panthers were on the power play right before that, and just couldn't find a way to convert and at least take a lead and get a little bit of confidence and at least play it ahead, because we've seen how differently this team plays with ahead versus when they're behind. Huge difference. And also now 0-9-0 when the Panthers trail after 1. Something to keep note, Panther fans, for the future. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where now the Panthers have to turn the page, and it's not going to get any easier, as now they take the road trip to the Lone Star State in Dallas. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch. And the holidays are amazing, but they can also get overwhelming fast. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year. That's exactly why Monarch has become such a game changer for me. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you need to be using Monarch, rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. Monarch is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category can become a lifesaver. You can see exactly what's left in your gift and travel budget in real time. Monarch makes money check-in simple, just a minute or 2 each week, and you're completely up to speed. It's great for couples with shared dashboard, shared goals. If you're away, How much did I spend? Conversations. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Segment number 3 here on this Friday, December 12th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. Armando Velez here with Nich Fairbanks here. So far, as of right now, we don't have an update on AJ Greer as I've been kind of refreshing my Twitter feed. So if we find out right before the show, we will say this on the air. But if we don't, we will update it on the socials. But the Panthers have to quickly turn it around, and it's not going to get any easier as coming into the night, the Dallas Stars were 2 points behind the Colorado Avalanche. They were on an 11-game point streak prior to their game tonight before they lost to the Minnesota Wild. And Jason Robertson has been one on fire as of late and now making a big case for Team USA. The last time that these two teams faced, the Panthers actually played pretty well against them on that game again in November 1st, outshot them in every period with the exception of overtime. And really the true momentum of that game changed on a double minor from Seth Jones that the Stars were able to score twice on in that one. And then the Panthers, obviously, with the game changing on that double minor, Mikko Rantanen scores to tie the game at 3, but the Panthers eventually prevail and get the win in a shootout. But man, this Dallas Stars team is still pretty tough. They like I mentioned, they're on. They just had an 11-game point streak snap for them, and also just like Colorado, they're a really good home team, 10-4-1. Yeah, they have some regulation losses there, but this is the team. This is one of those teams that we've been talking about for years. One of them or Colorado should be the favorites to make it to the Stanley Cup final.
They definitely should, and to see Jason Robertson actually play the way that he's playing, especially with contract hopefully being on the table. It might not even be Dallas. I don't know if they can afford him anymore, but Dallas might be wise to maybe float his name to other areas and try to take advantage of what's going on right now to kind of bolster or fill some holes that they might have. And I think Roope Hintz actually went out after taking a shot to the knee or to the ankle, so they'll have to monitor that. So that might be something that could be in the Panthers' favor on Saturday. Don't wish anything like that on a player. Just something that might help the Panthers out on Saturday. But they have the goalie, they have the defense, and they have the forwards that can play that type of game. Now, I think what it's going to matter is their coaching staff and the turnover that they've had. Is that going to make a difference? Is that what's going to separate them from being in the Western Conference Finals to finally getting to a Stanley Cup? And it may very well be. I think having confidence in your goaltender and, having the team back you says a lot. Florida is a testament of that, bought into Maurice's system and away they've gone. So it's going to be a tough battle, but, hopefully history is not going to repeat itself with what just happened where Colorado was on a run. They lost their last road game only to come home and pummel the Panthers. Well, the Stars are coming in after getting their point streak snapped, coming home to play the Panthers. So hopefully Florida, licks their wounds a little bit and comes back to play a much better game.
Yeah, no doubt, and that would have to be some guys moving around. I know Jamie Benn has played a little bit of center here and there, so maybe he'd have to shift back there. So that's another thing. He was on that top line going into the night. So we'll see how deep their center depth truly is. I mean, Tyler Seguin, he's out for the year after a torn ACL. For him, but also that's a lot of salary cap space that the Dallas Stars could have at their disposal. And I don't buy the Nazem Kadri rumors because the fact that they have to pay Jason Robertson, I don't think they want to take anyone with terms. So two players that I'm thinking of for Dallas, I'm thinking of Kiefer Sherwood from the Vancouver Canucks, who's although he's been on a dry spell lately from scoring. I mean, Vancouver has been dry for a while now, but he could also bring the physicality, and he's cheap. Also, Rasmus Andersson,
Yep.
could be an option for them. Both of those guys combined are under $6 million, and they're both expiring deals for the Dallas Stars. So it may be worth for Dallas and Jim Nill to go after those guys and then just load up and make one final one big run before the bill really comes due. Even this offseason, they had like 1 million in cap space with like 19 players going into the offseason. So it's going to be another one of those seasons where they're going to be a little bit tight. Yeah, $20 million, but Jason Robertson's at least worth 11, 12 million. And then you have to fill out the rest of the roster, which again, like you said, it's going to be a little tough to keep him there, but he's an RFA. Jim, like the Stars are going to have a win-win either way. They're either going to pay Robertson and he's going to stay, or they could flip him and get some picks and then maybe use those picks later on when the salary cap rises and bring a star in later, because people love to play in Dallas. I mean, there's so much roster turnover even from their 2020 bubble run, and they're still in the mix. You're in. And you're in and you're out there. So man, I'm hoping that hey, the Panthers are 500 on this road trip as of right now. If you could at least guarantee that on Saturday with 2 points, and knowing that Tampa Bay are without Vasilevsky right now, Victor Hedman is going to maybe out long term, even with the same injury that kept him out before he came back. You could really salvage the road trip and actually carry that over right before they do return home.
Definitely. And before we go to Tampa, because I know that's like Monday, but it's very interesting that you brought up Anderson's name. I actually wonder if Calgary would be interested in actually swapping him for Robertson. And I know Anderson's destination of, what he wants to do is he wants to go to Vegas, but I don't think they have the money to do it unless they want to start trading off other assets that they have. But I think Dallas would be very advantageous to get Anderson, and I think he might be one of the pieces that they are missing to actually make it to the Stanley Cup. So if I was Jim Nill, I might be calling Calgary and seeing what their idea is of actually wanting to do that. But just saying. But as far as Tampa Bay goes, they're definitely on a heater right now. I know they just beat who did they beat tonight? I think it was like New Jersey. Yeah, sorry. I always like making fun of New Jersey for whatever reason. But yeah, they won 8-4. And if Vasilevsky and Hedman are going to be out, then that relies on Hagel, Point, Kucherov, and Radish, who has actually stepped up a lot this year. So if Florida can at least win, hopefully get a point in Dallas and then go into Tampa and have a positive road trip, it does a lot, because then you're within the, I want to say, the week and a half window of Mr. Tkachuk coming back.
Look at this season in little segments.
Yep.
Here and look at this and see where the Panthers were, and even before, when they were on their 4-game point streak. Okay, you saw. Try to do quick math. 7 out of 8 points in that stretch right before this game on the second end of a back-to-back. And we even said it, scheduled loss. I mean, for those not watching on the YouTube, I wore my Miami Arena t-shirt on purpose because, hey, a rematch of 1996. This was where that was the arena where they both faced. Maybe a little bit of a tribute to the Panthers' first home. We are approaching the Winter Classic, which they did announce, the NHL, that the festivities will start at 2 p.m. That day, going on right before game time with a concert and a whole bunch of hockey activities. So, let's hope that the Panthers could get those 2 points and that we could hopefully go into Monday with a chance to be over 500 and right before returning back to Amerant Bank Arena. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful Fairbanks Friday, even though it came in a loss against the Colorado Avalanche. So tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
No, thanks for having me on. And there's only a few times that you can laugh after a loss like that. Just, brush it away. But you guys can follow me on X at Prudential0. Let's get a win this Saturday, and let's come back and take Tampa on and take 2 wins out of the weekend, I'll call it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.